there is a statutory framework and regulatory framework that has allowed this to happen. The concentration of these media outlets into these large corporations and the sort of compiling of all these affiliates into these single companies. So it's legal. I mean, what Nexstar is attempting to do, which we can get into, but the Nexstar business before the government is a request for an accommodation. It's not just please apply the law, but it's a request for you to change something for us. But with respect to like the broader implications, we're seeing right in front of our eyes one of the most important implications, which is that it makes it easier for the government to pressure these companies to do what they want. And it also makes it more impactful when any one of these single companies, like a Sinclair with a conservative lean, makes a decision like this. It can affect whole swaths of the country. So really at the root of all this, beyond the legalities and the questionable, highly questionable, I think, improper comments from Brendan Carr last week, is a business environment that is conducive to this sort of extortion, if you will. People are saying jawboning, that sort of thing.
Right.
Tom Nichols, Senator Elizabeth Warren used a slightly different frame, and that was the frame of corruption. This is a post she put out earlier today. Nexstar, the largest TV broadcaster, needs Donald Trump's approval for a $6 billion deal. If approved, Nexstar would control TV stations reaching 80% of households, violating the cap set by Congress to protect against monopolies. This censorship of Kimmel reeks of corruption. We've been talking about this in the context of the First Amendment. I believe that is a valuable and accurate conversation to layer in this element of corruption and grift, which is a constant refrain when we talk about this administration, further complicates this question.
I think the thing that's actually more worrisome is that it's not corruption. It's playing the game by the rules of trying to influence, to work the refs, to influence the president, to say, we will say nice things about you and we will punish your enemies. It's out in the open. I mean, corruption and graft, implies people doing things in secret. But this is all quite out in the open, and it's something that a lot of corporations have been doing with Donald Trump to try to figure out how to placate him so that the government doesn't become a regulatory obstacle to things they want to do. And we saw this in his first term. It almost seems quaint now that how many of us complained about things like Trump threatening to prevent mergers or be involved in American business far beyond what we would expect from a president. But now everybody's playing the game. They figured it out. He's going to be in office for 3 more years. There are things they want to do, and they just have to make sure that they massage his ego and do the things he wants them to do. I wish it were corruption. I wish it were more shocking than this, but again, it's right out there in the open.
Along those lines, then, Tom, it really makes me think about the fact that people I don't know if a lot of folks are sitting at home wondering like, oh, who owns my local NBC or CBS affiliate or my local ABC affiliate? But the reality is that Sinclair and Nexstar and all of these companies that own the affiliates, they have a lot of control over what folks across the country, how they are receiving their information. People talk a lot about the future of cable, the future of broadcast news, right? The future of late night television. But the reality is people are still watching their local news channels. They want to get the weather and the local news, see what's going on, and they want to check on their local baseball and their football teams, okay? And the local news is shaping how a lot of people are consuming the news of the day. This is from Sinclair a couple years ago. This is how they decided to shape the news, if you will, for the folks of the stations that they owned, I believe, in 2018. Take a listen.
The sharing of biased and
false news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish things that simply aren't true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
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 In 2018, Sinclair mandated that every single anchor read from the same script. That was a physical demonstration of the power that they have. When people see their local news folks, Tom, I don't think they ever think of them as the local news people giving them propaganda. But Sinclair has demonstrated that's exactly what they're willing to do.
Yeah, people trust their local news folks and their local anchors. And, if you ask them, they'll say, well, I don't watch biased news. I don't watch MSNBC or Fox or CNN or the big cable networks. And they'll say, I just watch the local news. But they are, in fact, getting messages sent to them directly through their local news stations. And, for all of the worry that people had about changes years ago, things like the Fairness Doctrine, the one that really slipped by everyone that should have been a real worry was allowing, your other guests already talked about it, allowing these large corporations to control lots of local TV stations. I'm nostalgic for the days when I grew up and the local TV station's call sign, the call letters were like the initials of its founder because they were locally owned and they were part of the community. Local news isn't really local anymore because of this. And I think people, I agree with you, Simone, I think people don't think about this, and they should. But I think most Americans have come to believe local news is, one thing and it's separate and it's honest, and big networks are corrupt and biased and so on. But that's simply not the case.